So, and they were only red? What was the, because you wanted a speeding ticket?
I ran around with nine, I got 9 credits somehow for years.
Senate will please come to order. Today's devotional exercises will be conducted by Reverend Ramin Zahed of the Old Meeting Church of East Montpelier. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. My scripture reading is taken from the Epistle of Peter, the first epistle, chapter 3, verse 8. Finally, all of you have unity in spirit, sympathy, love for another, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Ramin Zayed, and I serve as a senior pastor of the Old Meeting House in East Montpelier. It is a great honor to provide a devotional to this august institution, and I sincerely pray for you as you endeavor to serve the great state of Vermont wisely and judiciously. The work you do in this session is quite possibly the most important in Vermont's history, and it is no exaggeration to say, will impact the future of not only the state, but our country as well. With your permission, I'd like to share why. On January 4, 2024, our governor, the Honorable Phil Scott, gave his State of the State address where he laid out the bleak realities facing Vermont and the challenges that lie ahead of you. I would like to add to his concerns by providing a few more issues facing both Vermont and our country. The growing cultural nihilism fostered by malevolent chaos agents, the rise of malignant narcissism among religious and political leaders, and the lack of compassion for the suffering human condition. Add to this the false narratives of division and hate seen in social media platforms that have also found their outlets in all parts of our information ecosystems. There is a fear-based malaise spreading to areas outside these ecosystems, our political institutions, religious organizations, even to my tiny church in East Montpelier. Therefore, I want to share with you a brief message that addresses the suffering and broken human condition. And it is crying out in desperation for your leadership as we seek compassionate dialogue, healing, and a return to the universal oneness of humankind. This in an increasingly chaotic, angry, violent, and dangerous world. My guide through this difficult period has been the renowned and brilliant Indian writer and scholar, humanitarian and poetess, Arundhati Roy, who reminds me to love, to be loved, to never forget your own insignificance, to never get used to the unspeakable violence and the vulgar disparity of life around you, to seek joy in the saddest places, to pursue beauty to its lair, to never simplify what is complicated or complicate what is simple, to respect strength, never power, above all to watch, to never look away, and never, never forget. Here is one way you can help us overcome our cultural nihilism. We need your leadership and your promise to work together in common cause in pursuit of what is prudent, just, and equitable for all people. I sincerely encourage you to transcend the politics and hermeneutics of division and hate, and instead enter into a compassionate dialogue with one another as you endeavor to lead Vermont and our country out of our cultural nihilism. Far from being another trite, meaningless form of virtue signaling, compassionate dialogue in pursuit of common cause is what is desperately needed to save our broken world. This is, in essence, the wisdom found not only in our scripture reading that I shared with you this morning, but in the best of every religious and humanistic tradition. Find unity where there is brokenness. Speak love when others speak hate. Show tenderness to those who are suffering and see the beauty of the world through another person's eyes. This is, after all, what will matter at the end of the day. After you put your pens down and rest, after the last light departs from the night sky, after the last ounce of love in our heart has been shared, after the last breath of air has left our bodies, and after the last remnant of beauty fades from our memory, that we gave with abundant love and grace to build a better, more inclusive and just world for all, and it started here with you. So may God bless you, this beautiful and majestic state of Vermont, and our brilliant, amazing country, the great United States of America. Amen.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators will find on their desks an addendum to the Senate calendar that includes the budget adjustment, which was passed out last night by Senate Appropriations. Everyone should be aware, but I'll just note that that means the BAA will be up for action tomorrow. And so Thursday and Friday will be our work on this document. I would encourage you to save the addendum and bring it forward into that discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules be suspended and that H 839, an act relating to fiscal year 2024 budget adjustment, remain on the calendar for notice and not be referred to the Committee on Finance under Rule 31.
Now, the senator from Washington has moved that the rules be suspended and H 839 remain on the calendar for notice and not be referred to the Committee on Finance under Rule 31. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you've suspended your rules in order that H 839, an act relating to fiscal year 2024 budget adjustments, remain on the calendar for notice and not be referred to the Committee on Finance under Rule 31. Are there other announcements? Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs be relieved of S46, an act relating to the Vermont Fair Repair Act, and that the bill be committed to the Committee on Agriculture.
Now, the senator from Chittenden Southeast has moved that the Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs be relieved of S46 and that the bill be referred to the Committee on Agriculture. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you're relieved. The Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs of S46 and referred the bill to the Committee on Agriculture. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. We have up for consideration second reading of H 599. The bill was read for the first time, referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy. Now, for the, please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 599, an act relating to retroactively reinstating 10 VSA 6081B.
Now, you've heard the second reading of the bill. For the report of the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy, the senator from Washington, Senator Watson.
Thank you, Mr. President. It may seem a little unusual that we're taking up an H bill before crossover, but the reason is because this is a bill with some urgency. This bill originated when Legislative Council was reading through enacted legislation from the 2023 session. In that read through, she discovered that last year's Boards and Commissions Bill, H 125, which is now Act 53, had deleted an important paragraph in statute that is foundational to Act 250. So in case you don't recall, the Boards and Commissions Bill cleans up statutes with references to obsolete boards. And indeed, this paragraph made a reference to the Board of Health, which no longer exists. Between the obsolete board and a paragraph full of 50-year-old dates, it seemed logical at the time to delete this paragraph along with the references to the Board of Health. H 599 restores this particular paragraph that was deleted by Act 53. So why is this paragraph important to keep? In order to understand why this paragraph is important, we have to travel back in time to 1970, when Act 250 was about to be brand new legislation. Up until then, the Department of Health issued permits for buildings to ensure that they were safe and sanitary. Right at the beginning of H 599, where it says subsection A, that reference is the part of Act 250 which says that you can't commence development without an Act 250 permit. This paragraph creates an Act 250 exemption basically to all development that either already existed or was already underway in 1970. It exempts subdivisions or development that were already exempt under the Department of Health's regulations, development that already had a permit, or development that had a permit application pending as of June 1st, 1970. It also exempts state highways that are already, excuse me, that were already held, that had already held a hearing by June 1st, 1970, and telecommunication systems prior to 1997, which was a later addition. The last sentence, subsection A of this section shall apply to any substantial change in this, in such accepted subdivisions of development. That is the trigger for when Act 250 applies to those developments that have been exempted. So without this broad exemption, which is the majority of the paragraph, plus the trigger, which is the last sentence, any existing building that has been exempt for the last 50 years could now need an Act 250 permit. So I'm going to say that again because it's important. Without this broad exemption plus the trigger, any existing building that had been exempt for the last 50 years could now need an Act 250 permit, which is why we're here. Theoretically, while this language remains unrepealed, or I'm sorry, while this language remains repealed, someone could ask for an Act 250 enforcement on one of these existing structures. So the sooner we can close this gap, the better. You may notice in section 2 regarding the effective date, this bill notwithstands 1 VSA 214, which states that laws that we pass do not apply retroactively. And normally that's true. Normally, that's what we want. However, in this case, we purposefully want to reinstate this language retroactively so that it goes into effect the same day that the language was repealed, June 8th, 2023, so that there's no gap in the law. Again, this was the recommendation of our legislative council. Your Natural Resources and Energy Committee heard from legislative council and the Natural Resources Board on this bill. We found H599 favorable and urged the body to concur.
I've heard the report of the committee. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H599. We now have up for consideration S180. S180 is read for the first time, is referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that when the bill is amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S180, an act relating to the investment of state funds in credit unions.
Now you've heard the second reading of the bill. For the report of the Committee on Finance, Senator from Chittenden Southeast, Senator Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Based on most recent guidance from the presiding officer of this chamber, I will not be asking permission if I can speak to both the amendment and the underlying bill. S180 would provide the state treasurer more options and greater competition for the investment of state funds. As statutes are currently worded, the treasurer is limited to depositing funds in banks, savings and loan associations, and community development credit unions. That 20-year-old language omits 14 cooperatively owned local credit unions from the treasurer's deposit options. This modest change in statutory wording would allow the treasurer to consider all Vermont domiciled institutions as depository options. It does not require the treasurer to place deposits in credit unions. And in addition, nothing in state or federal law prevents a credit union from holding government deposits. S180 opens the doors for keeping more funds within Vermont borders and modernizes the treasurer's in-state depository options to reflect realities of the state's marketplace. The original language was very palatable. We did do an amendment in order only to offer some more precision as to what the credit unions were focused on, which would be the state certificates of deposits credit unions as defined in 8 VSA 3101 and savings and loans associations approved by the treasurer. Your Committee on Finance heard from Joe Bergeron, President CEO of the Association of Vermont Credit Unions, Jeremiah Breer, Chief Financial Officer, Office of the State Treasurer, Chris D'Elia, my apologies, Chris, President, Vermont Bankers Association, Ashlyn Doyen, Director of Policy Office of State Treasurer, Aaron Turnek, the Deputy Commissioner of Banking, Department of Financial Regulation, and Maria Royale, Legislative Counsel. Your Committee of Finance voted 7-0-0 and urges this body to concur.
I've heard the report of the Committee on Finance. The question is, shall the Senate adopt the report of the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those, Senator from Bennington. The Senator from Chittenden is interrogated.
To see a change in the effective date in section 2, but I don't see it on the calendar, so I'm asking why the effective date is on passage. Doesn't the treasurer and other people need time to notify people?
My understanding, Mr. President, is that the interested parties are aware of this, that they have been looking at the Bank in Vermont program that's already in place. And so effective on passage is desirous, and so as to allow for the competition between the different potential banking vendors, banking providers for these certificates of deposit.
Thank you.
Question is, shall the Senate adopt the report of the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you've adopted the report of the Committee on Finance. Question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of S 180. That completes the orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any announcements? I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until Thursday, February 8th, at 1 p.m.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Madison.
Senate Natural Resources and Energy Week will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Senator from Washington.
President, Senate Finance will meet at 1 p.m.
Senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Education will meet at 1:30.
Senator from Madison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Government Operations will meet at 1:30.
Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate institutions will meet 15 minutes after the fall of the gavel.
Senator from Windsor.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you. Farmers Night will meet at 7:30 in the House Chamber, and we hope you'll all be there to celebrate 50 years of the National Humanities Council and our own wonderful and robust Vermont Humanities Council. We're having a Vermont author and a National Book Award finalist, Kikla Magoon, speak about her book, Revolution in Our Time, the Black Panther Party's Promise to the People. And Kikla addresses and considers in this book the importance of reading as a tool for social change and our power to transform communities. And all of us are clearly committed in many ways to transforming our lives, both in Vermont and in our communities. So I encourage you all to think of coming tonight. It should be wonderful. There's a reception beforehand that the Vermont Humanities Council is hosting, and 7:30 in the chamber.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central moves that the Senate now stand adjournment until Thursday, February 8th at 1 p.m. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand adjournment until Thursday, February 8th at 1 p.m.